Hey, sorry we started the meeting a little late. I'm glad you're all here. So I guess someone started it. Wonderful. The meeting is recording. Perfect. So all I need to do is, hey, I've got Copilot. I should show you guys that. I need to share my screen, which is this one. And then I need to go here, and then I need to go here, and then I need to go here. Okay, online people, can you see the screen okay?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Love you all. Welcome. Hello, real life people. How's it going? Welcome. How many new people? Oh, lots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 9, 10. Welcome. It's great to have you here. This is the Power BI and Fabric meetup. We've been doing this for 8 years, long time, but this is the first time in the new office for Cognizant. So here we are on level 24. It's pretty much the same, except we don't get the nice view anymore. Boo! But at least we've got a bit of fun. Just want to quickly say thanks. For the people who haven't actually met me, hopefully I said hello. But my name's Greg Nash. I'm the local Power BI user group leader. Luke isn't here. He's away, running up the Alps or something, because that's what he does. So he's the other co-organizer, and we've got Dan, who's the other co-organizer, who's here somewhere. And Dan had to put in a lot of effort to make this happen today. So I want to say special thanks to Dan, who's currently getting pizza for us. Hey, Dan, thank you. A round of applause for Dan. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's not easy to run a community event in a large organization. I'll just put it to you that way. Also, thanks to our sponsors. So we've got Cognizant, who have been kind enough to lend us the venue, and they sponsored the drinks. And then we've got Serious People, and they have been kind enough to sponsor the pizza that are late. So, boo, Serious? No, just kidding. Bryson, who isn't here, but look up Bryson from Serious. Cognizant, pretty famously large organisation. So hopefully you've heard of them before. If you haven't, and you're doing enterprise anything, look them up. They're worth looking up. I think they also sponsor like an LPGA event, which is cool, like the ladies golf. And the last sponsor is me, Dear Watson Consulting. So we're doing Fabric Jumpstart at the moment. If you're interested in getting started with Fabric, we have a program, like a 4-week program, where we get people started on Fabric. So if you're interested in that space, talk to me, or talk to Steve, who's sitting right in the middle there so that you can all see him, or talk to Thea, or talk to one of my people. But yeah. So thanks to the sponsors, though. We can't do these kind of things without it. Thank you very much. All right, so today, look, here's some about me. You guys know me. I recently went to Microsoft. That's what I did in March. I went to the MVP Summit, and I actually hung out at the actual Microsoft campus in Redmond, so that was fun. I learned all the secrets that you're about to learn, well, you just learned if you've been paying attention to Microsoft Build. These are all the things they told us back in March that were coming along. So I've had this presentation ready to go since like 3 p.m. this afternoon. But yeah, so that was really interesting. The Redmond campus is ridiculously large, as you can imagine. Microsoft's one of the largest companies in the world. And it's all brand new, and there's lots of really crazy things in there, like one of those silent rooms where you go crazy if you spend more time in there than 5 minutes or whatever. They've got all that cool stuff that you can go and visit and check out. They've got treehouse offices and all sorts of crazy stuff. I met Clippy. So yeah, well, Clippy didn't look too happy to see me, but yeah, and so that's me. Today we're talking about all the announcements that just came out at Build for Power BI and for Fabric. And then, you know what, if we have time, and there's an awful lot of announcements, so we probably won't, but if we have time, we can just chat about whatever you want to talk about. I know there's lots of new people to Fabric here who are kind of exploring Fabric, and so if you've got any questions about that, I'm happy to answer them. If you've got any questions about Power BI and you're stuck on DAX, then Steve will help you. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, feel free. I'm happy for this to be an open forum. It's our first in-person of the year, except for the big extravaganza with Patrick from Cube. So if you missed that, that was last month. You have to wait till next year now for him to come back. But that was very successful. We had like 100 people at that event, and that was good fun. So a lot of people got to meet Patrick, and then we're talking to them again. Hopefully we'll get Patrick and Adam, or Adam as well, from Cube next year. I've been talking to Rezarad, I've been talking to Marco Russo. They're both here in August. So it's a battle of the ages to see who gets to present at our meetup. Marco's going to win. I'll just tell you that straight away. But maybe not. Rez is pretty good. I don't know. Who would prefer? No, I won't see that. Actually, what I was hoping. Okay, this is a real question. If I had Marco Russo 1 week and then the next week I ran Rezarad, would you come to both? Put your hand up. So pretty much everyone. Yeah. Okay. Maybe we'll do that. So that's a possibility for August, but we might need to spin. Okay. All right. So what we're going to talk about. So there's a bunch of announcements from the Build conference, right? So there's Satya being cool, doing the thing. Build is free. You can go and check out all these announcements. There's all sorts of different things. Just wanted to give you my take on some of the stuff that's been announced. The first couple, Model Explorer and DAX Query View, we'll talk about those and why they're in here, because they're actually not brand new. There's a whole new thing called Real-Time Hub. There's a Fabric Workload Developer Kit. There's an API for GraphQL. There's a user data functions. There's all sorts of stuff. I'll explain what they are, hopefully in relatively straightforward terms, because I do know that there's some beginners here. And I apologize in advance. Sometimes I get excited. I'll try to keep it consumable. And then if you have questions, feel free to interrupt me. I like being heckled. So I'm happy to do that. Okay, so let's get into it, because there's an awful lot to talk about. And then when the pizzas arrive, feel free to just get up and eat the pizzas. I won't be offended. I'll just talk to an empty room. Most of you know that. So the first one is called Model Explorer. If you haven't seen this, you can turn it on in Power BI. It's a preview. I think it's still a preview feature. You have to turn on even in May. I don't know if it's gone GA yet. So you have to turn it on in your options, and you turn on the preview feature, and then you go to the model view, which is here. Sorry for the people online. Hopefully you can see that, the model view. Everybody knows the model view. And then you get a new thing, a new tab, which is this model view. And you can do calculation groups, and you can see the real model. For those of you that were using Tabular Editor to see the model properly, now you can see it inside Power BI proper, which is nice. So it's got all the stuff. So metrics, time intelligence, all those bits and pieces. So the proper view of the cultures, perspectives, relationships, roles, tables, all the stuff. Okay, so that's new. That's either has gone GA this month in May. I did look at in May, and I wasn't sure if it was GA yet or not. But yeah, you can look at, you got a whole new thing there. So check that out. If you get the latest Power BI desktop, you can check out Model Explorer. There's a link. I'll give you a link to the presentation as well. Everything I talk about here, there's a link to what the feature is and how it kind of works, except for one or two mysterious features that are getting announced tomorrow, but we're throwing them in anyway. The thing that did definitely go GA, so it's out of preview features now, is DAX Query View. Who's used the DAX Query View so far? Yes, all the advanced users. Good work, everybody. If you haven't checked out DAX Query View, definitely check it out. This is an important piece of Power BI. So you see it's below the model view now. You get a little DAX icon. This means you can run DAX queries independently against your model. So you can just write a random DAX query in it and execute it against your model. The reason why this is important is because sometimes you just want to test stuff, or you want to just write a random DAX query and execute it and not have to write a measure and do all that kind of stuff. It's just an internal query that you can run against your model. Particularly good if you're starting to get into more advanced kind of Power BI, and you're doing testing scenarios where you have to write a bunch of tests against your model to prove that your model works before you publish it. That's they're starting to get into DevOps and DataOps type thing. You might need to run a test to say, oh, does this number equal this? Or those types of scenarios where you're making sure you're running testing. This is where you can do that inside Power BI Desktop, write a bunch of DAX queries that are tests, and then run them. And go, oh, that works, that works, that works. Okay, this is good to publish. So you can write a bunch of tests that don't get published into the model necessarily. It's just a way for you to test that. One of the interesting things that they've just added as well is that you can, and I think it's doing it in the thing from the performance analyzer, when you record stuff, you can run that query against that table. You can run that now independently in just with a click of a button inside Query View, which is cool. So that's a feature that was created by Zoe. Many of you have met Zoe. She came to Australia. She's from Melbourne, so she's over in Redmond now, and she's like releasing 700 features, and this is one of them. So she basically is taking all the best bits out of DAX Studio and Taylor Editor and bringing them into Power BI so you can use them things. So she's doing this model view stuff, and she's doing the DAX query view. So go Zoe, well done. We like that. I think this is one of the first things she did. She was telling me about it when she was in Melbourne once. She's like, hey, do you like DAX Studio? I'm like, yeah. She's like, what if we had like that inside Power BI? I'm like, yeah, do that. So yeah, interesting. So she does also performance analyzer and all those internally bits and pieces. So that's GA now. And so if you're interested in that, that's cool. Right, now we get into some crazy stuff that gets announced at Build like this morning in the middle of the night. The first one is called AI skills. So this is something in Fabric, right? And I don't know if you can see it. This isn't animated, this one, is it? No, it's just a static clip of what it's doing. I might click on the link and we'll have a look at it. But just quickly, what this is you can now, actually I've got a video. I will show you the video. But what you can do is you can create a query that is against your Fabric model. So inside Fabric, you've got like a SQL endpoint, essentially, right? So you can run a SQL query against your Fabric data. You can write a SQL query and get some data back. You can now like save that as a skill that AI can call. So Copilot can call like a predefined query. So you can go, hey, what's my top 10 so-and-so Copilot? And now it goes, oh, I know that skill because I have an AI skill. And then it calls it against your Fabric workload, which is pretty crazy, to be honest. So I'm going to see if this video works. What I might do is stop sharing the screen and start sharing the screen for you, those of you online, because I need to turn on sound. So I'm going to do that right now. Include sound, go. And share this giant screen. And then click on this link. And then minimize that. Okay, AI skills we were doing, weren't we? So this is the blog post from Arun this morning. So it came out this morning. It's got a bunch of these announcements in it, and there's a bunch of like demo videos. So I'll just play the demo videos. We're going to talk about that one in a sec. DAX query view. Here's those animated things for DAX query view. AI skills. Here it is. Ooh, how exciting.
So I'm going to give you a sneak peek of one of the ways you're going to be able to bring custom generative AI to your data in Fabric. Let's create a new Fabric item. I'm going to name it Loyalty Member Support Insights because what I want to create is a custom generative AI tool where I can ask questions about loyalty members and customer support cases for those members. So the first thing I'm going to do is add my data from one lake. I can just select a lakehouse, and now I can select the specific tables I want the generative AI to have access to. And that's it. That's all the setup I need to do. And now I can start asking questions. Let's ask how many support calls we've had from loyalty members, but break it down from the source the loyalty member joined from. Now, behind the scenes, we use our AI models to generate a SQL query and give an answer. Now, this is a little different than Copilot and Power BI, because the goal here is to let you put generative AI directly on your data and then integrate it into your own custom solution. For example, giving your own custom AI solutions the ability to interact with your enterprise data. And the skill is really just focused on what it knows, which in this case, this can go to Agore's loyalty members' data and support cases. Let's ask another question. Who was the most recent loyalty member to make a support call? And the answer is Angelina Schlitz. This is a good answer, but I'd like it to include some supporting info. This is where I can add some notes for the model on how I want it to behave. I'm going to tell it to include some additional columns when responding about loyalty members. Now, let's rerun the query. And this time, the answer is bringing in the additional info. Now, let's ask for all the support calls from Angelina. And here's a list of the calls. Now, let's break down all of our cases by where they came from. And here's the breakdown. Now let's do one more question. Let's ask for our top 10 loyalty members. And this time it actually got it wrong. It just listed the members because it didn't know what to use for ranking them. If I quickly look at the data that's in the table I can see I have a column for lifetime spending. Let's give the model a note to use this column when asking about a top or ranking for members. And now we can get the correct answer. So finally, once I'm happy with the results, I can go ahead and publish this out. And right now in the sneak peek, it gives me an endpoint I can use to send questions to. But this is really an ideal fit for integrating this capability into other RAG-based AI orchestration options to give them access to your data in Fabric. Hopefully this is giving you an idea of how you can bring custom generative AI to your data in Fabric.
My brain has exploded. So this is something that I've been waiting for a long time to see a demo of out of Microsoft, right? Is that they've been talking about Copilot for a really long time, and you know what Copilot's really good at? Understanding words, right? So it can summarize text and that's amazing at it. You get it to do math, and it's horrible at it, right? And so there was always this idea that, well, how are you going to interact with your Fabric data, particularly because I'm interested in Fabric. They talk about Dataverse and all these other things that they integrate with Copilot, but Fabric has always been something where they're like, and Fabric is the data platform for AI, and you can integrate this with all of your enterprise data and all this kind of stuff. And then they never showed me what the link was between when I go, hey, Copilot, what was the top 10 sales for Sally? How does it go and get that data and do that? And so this is that missing piece between those two things. So this is a new front end for you that are building data solutions. It's not going to replace Power BI anytime soon. There's a lot of water to go under the bridge, so don't get too scared. Maybe in a year, but what we see here is that we've got a whole new front end that we as data professionals, if we're getting into the Fabric side, which if you're just Power BI right now, I encourage you to look at Fabric because this is where it's all going, right? You're going to need to be able to create data visualizations on top of your data, and you're also going to need to be able to create something that's going to interact with some kind of chatbot because everybody's building them and they're going crazy over it. And so I see this as a huge announcement from Microsoft because this is like now the missing link between all of that enterprise data you're bringing together, your semantic model and all the cool stuff that you're building, and getting Copilot to actually go, or ChatGPT or whatever, to go, hey, how do I give me the data? And then this is that link. So check this out. This is really good. I don't know much more about it than that. That's a surprise one for me. I heard them announce it at the MVP Summit. Someone accidentally said it. They go, oh, and you'll be able to do AI skills in Fabric. And I'm like, and I picked up on it because I'm like listening literally for those words. And I was like, what's that? And they're like, oh, nothing. And I'm like, oh, what? So yeah, really interesting, really interesting. And back to the presentation. Oh, where is it? Here. Okay, so this is the major kind of announcement in the Fabric world from Build that they've been talking about a lot. They did tell us all about this at the MVP Summit. It used to be called One River, which is the worst name ever. And then they were like, we're going to have One River. And they called it all the way up till last week because I asked them, is it still called One River? And they're like, no, different name. And it's now called Real-Time Intelligence, which I think is an excellent name. So well done to them. So real-time intelligence is and I've got another video I'll show you. We just scrolled past it in the thing, but this is now better. So real-time's been in Fabric for a little while. I've done a few sessions on it in the Lunch and Learns, and for those of you that have done that piece, you can bring data in through data streams. Like, so you have event data coming in, all these, your trucks are driving around and then spinning out IoT data into your Azure like environment. Real-time data is coming in, and then you could bring that into what was called a KQL database, Custo, query language, similar to a SQL database, but it's optimized for real-time data. So you can do it, it's better at processing real-time type scenario. They've now expanded this idea. That was kind of like a way of doing it that it's good. But this is now, they've sort of turned this into a first-class citizen of Fabric now, where you can basically create a bunch of event streams. So you can have a bunch of real-time data come through, and properly organize it and properly, look after it as you're doing it. So this is their real-time intelligence piece. It looks pretty good. So what the thing that you could do in like the Azure suite that you couldn't do in Fabric before is that they had this thing called Azure Stream Analytics. If you came to the Power BI meetup 8 years ago when I did my first presentation, I did it on Stream Analytics. Michael Berry's not here. He's the only person that would have been here. Anyone else? No one else would have been here. This is like they've replaced like a lot of the functionality that was in Stream Analytics that you can now do here. So one of the things it had was like this ability to edit the query as it flows through. So as you've got streaming data coming in, you're interested in a slab of time, right? I want to know how many events happened in the past 5 seconds, and then hop every 5 seconds to give me those events. You get all that kind of scenarios that are impossible to do with your 8 refreshes a day or whatever you get in Power BI, right? So this is a whole real-time capability that that Fabric now has a more mature offering. I'd say it's a maturing offering now inside, and it's very cool. So they've got a little demo on this one as well. Have a look at it. I probably could have done it from that previous one, but let's have a look. Is this it? There's 2. Maybe it's this one, Real-Time Hub. And then LCOM is the marine one. All right, cool. So yeah, I've got 2 videos on this one. One is a customer story, and the other one is just a little bit about what it is. So I'll show you that now.
Introducing real-time intelligence in Microsoft Fabric, an end-to-end solution empowering you to get instant, actionable insights on streaming data. At its heart lies a central place to discover, manage, and consume event data across your entire organization with a rich, governed experience. Get started quickly by bringing in data from Microsoft sources and across clouds with a variety of out-of-the-box connectors. Route the relevant data to the right destination in Fabric using a simple drag-and-drop experience. Explore insights on petabytes of streaming data with just a few clicks. Elevate your analysis by harnessing the intelligence of Copilot in Microsoft Fabric using simple, natural language. Make efficient business decisions in the moment with real-time, actionable insights and respond to changing landscapes proactively. Allow users to monitor the data they care about, detect changing patterns, and set alerts or actions that drive business value. All your data, all your teams, all in one place. This is Microsoft Fabric.
Yeah, marketing slides, yeah. Get hyped. Yeah, so they're making a big deal out of the Kafka thing. That's something that they're working on a lot, because they're like, well, that's the biggest kind of real-time streaming platform at the moment that people are using. So they make sure they integrate with these things. Lots of interesting integration kind of stories coming out of Microsoft at the moment and Build. We will talk about a few of them later as well. Do you want to see the other marketing thing of the marine people, or do you want to skip it? I don't care. You want to see the marine people doing real time? There's one. Yeah, all right, that's enough for me. Yeah, let's do it.
Elcom is one of the world's largest marine electronics companies. We have customers that require reliable access to our tools and services while being assured of world-class cybersecurity and privacy controls. At sea, accurate, on-demand data is critical to the safety of the vessel and the crew. Hyper-localized weather and congested shipping lanes are just a few of the challenges, making uninterrupted connectivity a critical need. This motivated us to design a new service that we call Welcome. With a 3-person development team, we were able to leverage Microsoft Fabric, real-time intelligence, and Copilot to build out a monitoring and management platform that is scalable, flexible, and future-proof.
To choose Fabric really was a no-brainer given this scenario. We had a really unique real-time intelligence need.
It would have taken us years to build this using legacy systems. With the help of Real-Time Hub for centrally managing data in motion and Data Activator for event-based triggers, Fabric's end-to-end cloud solution has empowered us to act on high-volume, high-granularity events in real time with fewer resources. Our engineers are the best in the world. Leveraging Microsoft Fabric and Copilot allows them to focus on customer safety and connectivity while at sea.
Too often we hear real time when really it's a latency of 20 seconds or 1 minute. With Fabric, we know about it instantaneously, and the customer knows about it instantaneously. Microsoft has packaged enterprise-level functionality so that it can be plug-and-play, a low-code or no-code solution. The features and functionality of Fabric and real-time intelligence are out of this world.
So Leon runs the UK Power BI user group as well. I've actually spoken at his user group, so he's an interesting guy. Yeah, so there you go. That is how you use it. You get a bunch of IoT devices on some ships and then do real time. Good fun. PowerPoint. All right, is anyone doing any kind of real time stuff? Because I'm just interested. No one. Oh, Lila's there. Okay, awesome. The only person who was interested in the real time is also doing real time. That's good. I think that's where it's all going, to be honest. I think I did a post about this at some point where I was like, everyone's just going to ask for real time. They ask for it now and you say no. And then now you theoretically can do it. It is, I will say, we've done a lot of capacity monitoring type stuff. I don't know, you've seen, the countdown's on, you sit, on your free capacity for Fabric. I've got like 26 days left or however long. So we've been looking at like what uses the most CUs and all that kind of stuff inside Fabric. And real time's pretty expensive, just FYI. That's why you can use Copilot, because you need an F64 to run it. No, not necessarily, but yeah, just keep that in mind. All right, another crazy, weird announcement, another Fabric-y thing. You can now build Fabric workloads and sell them to other people. That's interesting if you're a consultant. Who's a consultant? Hello, consultants. So this is called the Fabric Workload Development Kit. This is literally out of the blues. Didn't hear a peep of it. Was like, what the hell is this that they're announcing? And so they build a marketplace for Fabric solutions. So they've got a bunch of sample ones in here. If anyone's is anyone using Prophecy, master data management stuff? That's the recommended. If you have a problem with master data management, and there's no more MDM. There used to be Microsoft Master Data Manager. Did anyone ever use SQL Master Data Manager? A little bit, yeah. The new solution, if you look in the Microsoft documentation, how do I do master data management? It's literally you get this third-party product called Prophecy, and so they just wipe their hands of it basically. So so they've got one. There's I think Click. There's a bunch of different little ones here and there. It's interesting clicks there, but I don't know if that's click. ArcGIS have got one because they seem to be first to Power BI market for everything. So what is this? This is like a way that you can build out a Fabric solution. So let's say you've got like a really cool way of doing budget versus actual, when we were talking about it earlier, right? So we create this awesome budget versus actual on MYOB, right? And so you're like, I've got the definitive way to build budget versus actual on MYOB data, and I've got this awesome data model and a bunch of reports and all of the ingestion piece and all of the data transformation, and you package all of that up using this, and then you put it on the marketplace and go buy now and put a price on it. That's what this is, right? So this is cool. This is something that, like if you're in this space, particularly if you're building like these consulting, you're in consulting or you're an ISV, like you're building Fabric solutions, worth checking out. I think this is really exciting. They got this thing called the Fabric UX system. This is no idea what this is. They're just making stuff up now. So this is like they've got a whole way of building these things out to make it happen. So very interesting. I don't think there's much information on it yet. I don't think I have a cool video like I've had for the others, but maybe we'll have a quick look. There's a blog post announcing it. Yeah, just like a couple of screenshots of what you're supposed to be doing. Oh, here's some stuff. So can you see that properly? It's not too bad. So yeah, it's got like a whole, I don't know what, hello world. Oh my God, I don't know. Front-end implementation and back-end implementation as well. So that will be like Power BI and Fabric, all of that stuff. So anyway, if you're in that space, that's cool. Worth checking out. I don't know where the pizzas are, PS. I'm sure they'll arrive at some point. Yeah. Well, no. We got a message. There was a mix-up. I don't know who was here for Patrick thing last week. You know, the pizzas came late.
Yeah.
It was the same guy who organised the pizzas. That's my fault. I shouldn't have got them. Anyway. Okay. There's another thing. Here's another new thing. An API for GraphQL. Does anyone even know what GraphQL is or care? Yeah. Oh, there's one. All right. Awesome. So if you're building a GraphQL solution, this is really for when you're integrating with other applications and stuff like that. Lots of people want to use like a graph query language to be able to pull your data. So this is all your Fabric data in your lakehouse or whatever it is. And now you can expose it via GraphQL, which is just another way of things for application developers to use. They might already have native solutions that use GraphQL or whatever, or they prefer to use it. It's all JSON, webby type stuff. You can pull that from your data. So that's interesting and cool. I don't have a link for that one. There's a session about that on Friday, our time, at 6 in the morning or something. So that's the last day of build. So they're announcing, they're going through the details of what that means. So if you're into that, check that one out. I do have a link to that session at some point. Here's a question mark one, user data functions. This is another thing that's in the same session, the GraphQL session. I think this is similar to how we were creating weird functions for Copilot for skills. I think this is like the equivalent, but for like GraphQL-y type scenarios. So creating functions that can sit on top of your data that you can call, but I've literally got no info. So go on Friday if you want to learn that. Here's an explanation. That's right. User-defined data functions invoked from various Microsoft Fabric artifacts. So some kind of user-defined function, UVF. Yeah, I don't know if you're into that. Check out that session. But that's an interesting one. Copilot, can't go through a Microsoft presentation without talking about Copilot 100 times. So if you're building stuff in Power BI and you've got an F64 or more Fabric thing, which is the equivalent of premium. So if you're a P1 SKU right now and you're moving to F64 because you have to, did everybody know that your P1's turning off? Cool, excellent. Yes, it's soon.
Right.
Yeah, not tomorrow, but maybe end of June. I think it's a date in June. Don't panic too much. You get the equivalent pizzas here. Don't panic too much. You get the equivalent. This is exactly the same price, and you get exactly the same functionality with a few exceptions that are corner cases that hopefully you don't hit and you'll never have to talk to me about. But I have been looking into it because a lot of people have been asking about it because a lot of people are on P1 or higher. You could be on P whatever 17 or whatever, the one that costs $700,000 a year. Yes.
Is that for all the Ps?
All the Ps down. So yes, all the Ps. So the whole P SKU thing is getting deprecated. A SKUs are staying around, which is the embedded SKUs.
So
Yeah.
even if you've got licensing agreements up until
Yeah, so renew those now if you don't want to have to go through the process of.
So that's what.
Yeah. So you can relax until they run out. Yeah, and then I think they're only allowing, like, if you whatever you're doing now, that'll be the maximum term you get on the PSQ. So yeah, make sure you do that if you're on a premium and you need to chat to your local Microsoft rep, or if you need help, talk to me. But so if you're on a PSQ, you get the equivalent FSQ. So a P1 is an F64. And then if your P2 is an F128, whatever it is. Okay, so that's how it works. And you get all the same functionality. Nothing, it'll all work. Nothing will break. All of those things are happening. There was a rumor going around by a person who was saying that you don't get storage included, and the OneLake storage costs extra, and then all your PSQ will cost you more because of OneLake. That's not true. You get embedded. So the way storage works in Fabric is that you get Power BI artifacts are saved in your capacity for free. They don't cost you any money to store. Your Fabric artifacts, like your lake houses, they take OneLake storage. They cost money because you're using ADLS Gen 2 like data lake storage to store your stuff. So Fabric stuff, yes, you need to have OneLake, which is part of the Fabric world. So, but if you're an existing Power BI person and you've got a terabyte worth of models they're not going to suddenly charge you for storage. I asked Microsoft, they promised me they wouldn't. So yeah, so that's to clear that up. And you get like 100 terabytes of storage for every P SKU. So you're never going to run out of storage in P SKU. The other way you get free storage in Fabric is through mirroring. They're just giving you free storage to mirror your databases. So that's the other use case where you get free storage. And that's the storage scenario. So anyway, back to the F64 thing. If you get X64, you also get Copilot, which is cool. So you can replace yourself. No, just kidding. So Copilot, it's getting there, I would say. It's an interesting toy at the moment, just like ChatGPT is kind of an interesting toy. It's certainly not going to replace anyone's job anytime soon. It is kind of useful if you want to know. It's not too bad now at writing DAX. So the way Copilot works, you get it in Fabric and in Power BI. Question?
Out of the resources for any bigger capacity, when you're using Copilot, it seems quite slow for certain things. Does it come out of the CUs for the capacity, or is it like a freebie at the moment, or like how does it work?
Yes, that's a great question. So the question for the people online is, does Copilot consume my capacity when I ask it questions, and then does it, is there, how does it work? And the answer is yes, it does consume your capacity, and that's why it's F64 higher, because they didn't want to negatively impact lower SKUs. This was the biggest topic of conversation and complaint from us MVPs to Microsoft in March, because there is no way to throttle Copilot to say, okay, great, everyone can ask Copilot questions up until they use 10 CUs, and then they're not allowed to ask and then throttle it, right? That's not available. So my complaint is like, does that mean that theoretically a junior developer could ask Copilot too many questions and break my data pipeline? And the answer is theoretically, I guess, yes. And so that's a big point of concern at the moment.
They do it at the same time, but a bunch of refreshes are going on, a bunch of injecting queries. You might end up in a throttling situation.
It's a throttling situation, yeah. And so that's the thing, is that so the way that capacities work inside Fabric is that you have this thing called shaping, and you have this idea of where you have spikes, right? So if you have a spike in your CUs because you're running one super long weird thing, or you ask Copilot a super weird question that causes it to go in a loop, or I don't know how it could do that, but if you consume a huge amount of CUs in your thing, it doesn't just auto charge you the next level up. What it does is it actually borrows from your future capacity that when you're in your downtime. And so you'll see what happens if you look at the back end is your capacity goes up, then it kind of flatlines and it flatlines for much longer than the spike happened, because it's using that capacity to pay for the spike essentially, right? So that's how it works, and it's called shaping. So it doesn't then, so you can spike it right up as long as it's only for a short period of time. It won't fall over or anything. It'll just use your 3 o'clock in the morning capacity when you're not doing anything to pay for that piece. So things can run for longer. So if you try to run a big workload on F2, it'll run over a longer period of time and consume capacity over a longer period of time, but it won't necessarily like fall over or anything. Question?
Will that Copilot usually pop up anytime soon on like the capacity metrics? Because I haven't noticed it even when we.
Yeah, it's a good question. If it's going to show up on capacity metrics is what your Copilot usage is. If it's not, then I'll ask for it too, because I think that's the place it should be. And so hopefully it will. It'll probably be there at the moment under interactive or one of the other things. But I think that should be a line item that you can track specifically, because yeah, you're right. That's something that we need to do. And I think pretty sure you can turn off Copilot completely on your Fabric, but yeah, if you've got that scenario where it's going to use your capacity. And honestly, this is just one of those things where, so the conversations we had with Microsoft about it, we spoke about why is it different in Fabric when it's you pay $50 a month in the Office 365 world, you pay an extra $50 a month, and it's a completely different capacity, and it just answers questions on, I think, why can't we have it that way? Now the answer is, well, we're looking at it. Like we're very non-committal about how it's going to work going forward. But right now, that's kind of where we're at. Is that it's going to use it. They're putting it as part of your fabric bundle. Like I said, it's not the end of the earth. The Copilot functionality is good. There's some really handy, nifty stuff. If you're a power user of Fabric and Power BI, there's some cool things you can do with it, but it's not going to be doing anything.
In the meantime, you can restrict them and just restrict who can use it, and
that's right. Just restrict people and go from there. So. But that is now, I think that's going GA. I think that's the reason why they're kind of talking about it now. So Copilot and Fabric. In Power BI Desktop, if you've got, so the way it works in desktop, you need to have an F64 capacity. So I can't just turn on Power BI Desktop without an F64. It actually asks you to log into your Power BI and say, oh, this is an F64 capacity that I'm pointing to. Cool. Now I'll be able to do Copilot against that. So it actually goes and consumes that capacity out of the F64 for your desktop as well. Okay, so it's cool that you can get it to spin up reports and stuff. It is starting to get to a point where it can kind of spin up a fairly generic looking, reasonable looking report. To be honest, some of the reports that comes up are a lot better than some of the reports I've seen. So, if you're a really bad Power BI user, maybe you're in trouble. But for the most part, there's still a fair way to go. But it's a great companion, just like all ChatGPT and Copilot type stuff. And it's much better than, so Copilot for Power BI is much better than DAX than ChatGPT. So if you're like, it can't do DAX, I think Marco actually talks about this a lot. He's like, it's terrible at DAX, forget about it, it's never happening. But it's actually pretty good at DAX. So the one in Power BI is pretty good. It's been given probably all of Marco's books. And then so it knows how to do DAX pretty well. Okay. How we go? Time, we're going not too bad. Data workflows. So this is a thing where they're integrating with Apache Airflow. So this is the start of like the integration story that they're doing. They're doing a couple of Apache things. So I think is there a video on this one? I'll see if there's a video. I don't know much about Apache Airflow, so I can't really talk at length about it like I can about Fabric and Power BI type stuff. I know it's very popular. And so they're introducing the ability to kind of interact using the Apache Airflow runtime, which is cool. So this is about managing your data pipeline. So Apache Airflow is a tool for managing a bunch of data pipelines. And so this is that. So I'll see if there's a little video. Hopefully there is. Oh, it doesn't look like it. It's just a bunch of screenshots. All right. Well, check out the thing for that if you're into the Apache world, into the Airflow world. Then that's something that I know a lot of people were asking about. So yeah, it's not really my area though. New shortcuts. So they've announced some new shortcuts. You can now shortcut not only to ADLS Gen 2, which was the only thing you could do before, which was data lakes, like Azure data lakes. You can now do Amazon S3. You can do Google Cloud as well. So that means you can surface. So for people who don't know what a shortcut is, in the Fabric world, you can point it at, say, like a bucket of data over in the Amazon world, and it will just surface that as if it's part of your lakehouse. So as if it's part of your data, if you like, but it doesn't move the data into your lakehouse. It stays in S3. And so that means you don't have two copies of your data. You don't have to do the copy from one to the other. It just shows the data, and you can do your manipulations, create views or whatever you want to do on top of that data as if it's part of a lakehouse. It'll create, like if you create a Delta table on top of that, then it'll create that in your lakehouse. But the source data stays there. So you're not having to create two copies of stuff, which you could only do against Azure workloads. Now you can do it against Google and Amazon workloads as well. So that's very cool. The really interesting one.
Yep. Like connecting data first, like to that source, and then it point to some shortcut, or how that?
Yeah, so you basically connect to it and then it surfaces it up inside. So it creates metadata tables against that data inside your thing and then surfaces it up as if it's data inside your lakehouse. So it just looks and feels. You can run, look in, SSMS or whatever you're using to do SQL queries against your data. You could do a query and it'll show as if it's a table inside your SQL data warehouse or whatever. And so it's like, it just makes that data available to you, but using the Fabric world. So that's kind of how it works.
So it's like link
Yeah, similar to a linked service in the SQL world. Yeah. And so so this is just another way to surface that data up without having to actually copy it. S3 compatible storage, they showed us some really interesting use cases when we were over there. This is for when you've got things like a NAS on-prem that's S3 compatible. So you might have a network attached storage is like a disk that sits on premise if you're on an on-premises scenario that is S3 compatible. So we can make it appear as if that disk on-prem is in S3. This is a way of doing that. You can now also surface that on-premises workload, that disk, as if it's part of your Fabric workload, right? It's because it's S3 compatible. It uses the same APIs, and so it all works. So that's actually pretty cool. They showed it with like a network, like a server room with a bunch of Dell network attached storage stuff in it, and they connected to it on-prem and surfaced it up in Fabric, and it was like, okay, so it's like just a one-click thing to shortcut that in. So that's kind of interesting. You can cross-tenant data share now. So now you can have your Fabric stuff all sitting inside your workspace, and then your best friend who works for another company, you want to share that data to them. I don't know what the use case is, but it's usually in a like a data in a sales scenario where you're selling data, for example. So you're a provider that does a bunch of analytics over hospital admissions or whatever, like something like that, right? So you do specialist kind of things, and you sell that to hospitals. Like I've literally spoken to people that do this type of stuff, right? Where they have a special model, they have a bunch of data scientists that work on that, they create all this predictive stuff. This is what's going to happen in your hospital, et cetera, and so forth. Then they want to share that to the hospital, to the analysts in the hospital, so they can do whatever they need to do for their regulatory reporting or whatever they're doing downstream of that. So you want to share that data to them. You're a provider and they're your customer, and they pay you to have your data, right? And so in this scenario, this cross-tenant data sharing means that you can do that in a way where you just literally go, here you go, and it appears inside their Fabric environment. So an interesting kind of use case for that. And I think it just works. Like it's all Azure, so that's pretty cool. I think I'm running out of things. This might be the last one. It is. That was the last one. All of these things have been spoken about at Build. So there's all links to all of the different sessions. The keynote's already happened. That happened last night. There's still sessions to go. Build is literally free. You just go to the website, Microsoft Build, Google it, and then go to the sessions. And then you just I think you just put in your login with your details. You don't have to pay anything. And then you can go and check out all of the different things. So lots of really interesting stuff. Heaps going on in the Copilot world that I haven't even spoken about, with all of the ways Copilot interacts. There's some crazy demos. It's always worth watching. If you want to get hyped, go and watch Satya's keynote. That's always got like the greatest hits. If you only watch one thing, then just watch that, and that'll give you a bit of an overview of all the cool stuff that they're doing. But it's good fun to kind of check out Build and see what's happening in the Fabric space. Yeah, probably not as much happening in the Power BI space as there is in Fabric at the moment, which I think is kind of expected. A few people have been complaining about it. There was a release today for Power BI as well. So you'll get if you're on the store version, for example, in the Microsoft Shop version, you'll get the May edition today. I just went and updated it and had a quick look. It's got that all the things we had at the start, the model view and the quick measures and all that kind of stuff. That's all now available. So check out the new version. There's a blog post on the May release, and there's also a blog post on the new May release of Fabric. So that got announced today as well. So it all got literally announced today. So you can check out all the announcements from Build. And then there's some of those things that I was linking to were blog posts from the different blogs to take you through to the specifics if you're interested. And that is what's happening in Power BI and Fabric from Build. Thank you very much. Beautifully prepared. Is there a question online? I saw a hand. Maybe? No? No.
Yeah,
no.
Rick, how you going? It's Andre.
Yep.
Andre
Yep.
here. Got a question, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Great, Prezo. Thank you for all of that. I'm really curious on the S3 Amazon connectivity in Fabric that you raised. We connect, so our semantic model connects to some S3 buckets, and that's how we get our data to the semantic model. The problem is we use ODBC to do that. Now, does Fabric, how will it work in Fabric? We still need to go through that ODBC bridge? Do you know?
My understanding is, and I definitely haven't tried it, so I can't tell you for sure, but that's exactly what that shortcut will completely remove the need for that ODBC bridge. You will connect directly to that S3 and make it available to you, and then be like, hooray, there's the data. So,
wow,
yeah.
I just got goose pimples. Thank you, Greg. That's music to my ears.
No worries. Awesome. I'm happy that I pleased at least one person. Thank you. Thanks for your question. Any other questions while we're here? Huh? We'll maybe do away with ODBC. Yes, I think that's my expectation, and I'm setting it all with you, and then we can all complain to Microsoft if it doesn't work. So yeah, but yeah, pretty cool. Yeah, question over here.
I'm wondering, may Microsoft get a Fabric desktop like Power BI desktop? Any chance?
Question is there going to be a Fabric desktop just like there's a Power BI desktop? Almost certainly no is the answer. The reason why is because they're actually moving all the functionality of Power BI desktop into Fabric and not the other way around. And that's so that the Mac users can do it as well. So, yeah, so no, they're moving away from desktop. They're not moving away anytime soon. Don't panic. Like, it's a massive thing.
On the roadmap is Visual Studio Code for Fabric.
Visual Studio Code, yes. Yeah, you'll have Fabric plugins. There's been a whole change to the way that the underlying data model. So there's Tyndall and PBIP. I don't know if we've spoken about this in the past. I think we have, but these is like they've completely re-architected the back end of Power BI files so that we can do CI/CD and all these nifty GitHub and all that kind of stuff and DevOpsy type stuff. So that means that what they're really doing is trying to move away from having that dedicated desktop piece because it's suboptimal, I guess.
Is the reason for your question because you're stuck on-prem and you're in some sort of organization that is forced on-prem?
Yes, so there is such kind of thing.
Yeah, on-prem. There will not be an on-prem for Fabric. No way. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. On-prem for like a whole lakehouse thing. I've actually got that coming up somewhere else as well. Anyone knows a good on-prem solution for a lakehouse, then let me know because I'm interested. There was a question at the back.
Yeah, with the CI/CD piece, so the pipelines that are currently in Power BI, I think that they'll go sort of the way of the dinosaur once that matured. Like if you've got proper source control in place and ability to, code your way through things. There's that pipeline bit in Power BI that is there at the moment, which I guess is sort of a bit redundant.
Maybe redundant. Yeah. So the question is for online is do we think deployment pipelines in Power BI will go by the way of the dinosaur? Because like if we've got proper CI/CD integration with Git and all the other things, we don't necessarily need those deployment pipelines. Really interesting kind of space it's in at the moment. Deployment pipelines, they still are kind of pushing them as the way to go. I think anyone, and then while I was on my little trip, I actually went to another data conference and someone presented exactly on this subject, and she was saying we actually don't use deployment pipelines. We actually use GitHub Actions or DevOps, whichever one you prefer, and we actually publish using that pipeline into each of the workspaces, rather than using the automatic one because we have more control and it's better for reasons. And so it looks like, I suspect that if it just goes into like a regular kind of DevOps workload that developers are used to, and that's the way that other people do it, I agree. I think deployment pipelines might kind of fall back and that they'll just do it the new way, because apparently it's better. And so, yeah, I think you're probably right. It probably will. Unless they somehow integrate it all back in. It might be that they surface deployment pipelines in DevOps somehow, Azure DevOps, and then maybe they do it that way. But yeah, I suspect that deployment pipelines seemed like a bit of a shoehorned in kind of solution to solve a problem that they had because they had problems with the architecture and they were trying to get away with it. and now they've re-architected, they might as well just do it the proper way, if you like. And so, yeah, I think maybe it might. I wouldn't be putting all my house on deployment pipelines right now.
I would just say it's kind of a business maturity thing. Like if you're a business that doesn't have DevOps engineers, deployment pipelines is a great solution.
Absolutely.
Great way to get things moving through
and still have
making people follow a kind of more robust approach to deploying reports.
Yeah.
Without having to teach them all the skills.
That's right. And that's a good point.
So I would expect it to stay for those reasons, but if you're more advanced, definitely.
Yeah, if you've got DevOps engineers working for you, then yeah, you're definitely going to probably completely ignore deployment pipelines. But yeah, I agree with Richard that you're definitely going to, if you're not that mature in that space, and there's a lot of, particularly like the Power BI world is full of, citizen developers and people who are just trying to do things. And if you can give them a few little tools that give them best practices that help them out, then yeah, that's the way to go. But it's also a premium thing, so it's like you've got to be a certain size to even be able to use deployment pipelines. So yeah, it's a bit of a weird one. No, you, Sam. Yeah, sorry.
I was going to say there's probably still a place for it because with Power BI or Fabric, if you want to move things between workspaces, you just publish the desktop file to the different workspace, so you can move it there. You can do that with Fabric. So if you want to move things between workspaces, it's that for Git integration.
Yeah.
And yeah, Richard, to your point, like it's a development maturity thing. So there could still be a place for it, but that idea of merging the two into Azure DevOps is an interesting one as well.
Yeah,
would go.
I don't see them staying as two separate things. It seems weird that they're separate, but maybe. I don't know exactly. Yeah.
Just to confuse things, they've just released APIs for deployment pipelines.
They have. So now you can do them programmatically as well. Yeah. Who knows? That was another interesting one actually at the MVP thing. It's the kind of discussions around, well, how did deployment pipelines kind of fit into the space? And no one came away with it. It was clear as mud by the end of it, like no one came away with the definitive, here's deployment pipelines and here's what they're there. There's still they're still investing a lot in deployment pipelines. So when I say don't put your house on it, like it's an each way bet, like maybe they'll go hard and sort it out. So who knows? Cool. Any other questions? Any online questions? I can't see the hands, so just speak up if you do. I'll give you like 10 seconds. No questions. All right, that's it. Oh wait, there's a question. Just in time.
The big capacity moving like the Fabric, obviously Fabric's got everything in there now. So you've got everything that was in Synapse, you've got the whole kit caboodle. Is there like obviously if you were paying for like a P1 or P2 before, you're basically just using that capacity for Power BI workload. So you could have data flows, you could have this, you could have that.
Yeah.
You could do some transformation, some heavy lifting there if you wanted to, but now it's everything, obviously. So do you think that there will be any sort of a push to be able to sort of separate out what people are paying for, or even just to be able to see the differentiation in resource utilization because of that? And then if people are sort of using that capacity for everything, it's sort of like, before you were paying a certain amount and you're just using it for the analytics capacity, the Power BI capacity, and now you're paying the same amount, you're getting all this other stuff, but you're not getting any extra resources. So do you reckon the pricing model, the way that they sort of separate that up, will make a change? Or
yeah, so I'll just quickly summarize the question. So the question is, now that Fabric's all bundled up with your Power BI, before when you're on a P SKU, you had it all, like you were just doing Power BI. Now you're doing everything. So you've got all of your data engineering happening in the same capacity potentially. Is it going to be, is that going to affect the pricing? Are they going to change it? What's going to happen with monitoring? That kind of idea, right? So yeah, it's an interesting one because now you're right. Like the usage of what you're consuming is potentially going to grow because now you're doing more. and Microsoft are going to make more money. Well, it's a price. That's how they will work. But yeah, I'm wondering, and the thing that I'm kind of leaning towards is almost to create a capacity for different domains or workloads, and having a dedicated, potentially a dedicated data engineering capacity that is only at a certain SKU level. And the question is whether you need that to, like, this F64 barrier creates all sorts of problems. And this is another thing we kind of spoke about, is like, you've got, maybe you want F64 kind of capacity because, like, that's where security goes, that's where all this stuff happens that you need potentially. That can only be, that's your production. But then you've also, you might need to do that for your data engineering, and you only need an F16 level of capacity to do your data engineering, and then the rest is all interactivity with your 10,000 users or whatever. Like, how do you separate those two things if it's all bundled up? And I see a future where potentially you will have, an F64 person will potentially be like, no, I'm going to get 3 F16s instead, because that way I can be certain. Like, I want finance department to run their own capacity and to never interrupt the operations department stuff, but they run a bunch of prediction models and AI and stuff, whereas operations just need a solid solution that's going to run, and they never kind of hit each other. And so that's a potential future that I see happening, where people start to break out the capacities. But Richard, do you have any?
Yeah, I had a question around that so we need to pay for, well, we've got P1 at the moment. We're obviously moving to F64. Can I subsequently, because the way the SKUs are worked out, that you can, I could theoretically, well, my question is, can I subsequently deploy an F32 and an F16 and an F8 to get up to my 64 to fully utilize that and still keep all the features of the F64?
Great question.
That's what I don't understand about
and that's one that I thought I understood until like yesterday, when I spoke to a cloud engineer, and they hinted to me that potentially it would be that you could have 2 F32s and you would get
the features,
F64 rewards.
Yep.
And the way to do that was to spin up an F64 and then spin it down to an F32, and then start another F32.
Because that was my understanding, of that you could subsequently use that F64 capacity as any way you chose with that. So, once you've paid for it, you've pre-booked it for the year or whatever.
Yeah.
And then subsequently you can distribute it any way you like. And if that's the case, things are great.
Yeah, and I don't have the solid answer on that, whether you can. I'm almost certain that if you spun up 32 F2s, you wouldn't get F64 if you did it that way. I don't think that will work that way, but it was suggested to me that you could spin up an F64 and then spin that down again, and then spin up another thing, and if as long as you had that, then the F64 features would be available. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but there might be some way to do it that way. I think that's totally, like, this is where we were talking about Copilot, capacity utilization, all of this stuff. This is a big talking point at the moment. I know this is definitely not the version of licensing, and all that we see now is definitely not going to be the way it lands, unless there's some, like, they just put their foot down on certain things. But they seemed very open to get feedback from you guys as the community to say, we need this to work this way, because I don't want my people using Copilot and interrupting my production workloads. It's crazy to me. I think that's a crazy thing, and I don't want, but I need private endpoints and all this security stuff that come with an F64 or above. But my workload is an F16 level workload, and so I don't want to pay $9,000 a month when I could pay $2,000 a month. It's not, the private endpoints is not worth the extra $7,000 a month. That's crazy. And so why can't, and that's a feature, by the way, in Synapse that was $50 a month. And so they're still resolving a lot of these questions around how the licensing and the technology work together to make these things happen. So it's not the end of the conversation, but anything like that, definitely feed all that stuff back to me, because I want to go in and jump up and down about it as well. Another question. Yeah. You want to go, Sharon?
So
People who are still very much in the Power BI making data look pretty side of the
Yes.
world, who are probably completely bamboozled by this point.
Yes.
How far into the future are they going to have to start paying attention and being across all this fabric stuff that's just being discussed?
Probably zero. You don't actually need to do it if you don't want to, is kind of where you're at. So Power BI people don't have to learn fabric. You don't have to do anything fabric. So you can stick, because that, like, I've spent the last 9 years doing Power BI. It's complicated enough. I totally am with you, right? I'm just a freak that likes to read Microsoft Learn documents, and so it's unfortunate for me. But I think if you're a front end analyst, Power BI person, notwithstanding the threat from Copilot and all those things, and I recommend, yeah, you should probably start, expanding out, because there's weirdness coming for sure. But it's not a foregone conclusion that you have to learn fabric. If you're doing Power BI, you can stick to Power BI. You can get your F60. You do need to know that you're moving to an F64 license, because they just changed the licensing, but you can totally not touch any of those fabric items. And you can make it so that they don't even appear, as long as you don't assign you can still have your pro workspaces and that kind of stuff.
You mentioned that they were changing how you deploy your files, or your PBX files, or is that just an option?
We're using pipelines, but we're thinking of moving to like Git source.
So the current Power BI service process will remain.
That remains exactly the same. Yeah. So this is more, enterprise DevOps, where you're doing it programmatically, where you've got more of a system where you might have, in DevOps, you do like automated testing and all this kind of stuff in larger environments. They need those types of capabilities to do that. They need to deploy all your PBX. But if you're just publishing PBX files, that's totally not changing. All of that stays the same.
I'm sitting here trying to figure out how you get GitHub to handle a PBX file.
Yeah, like the Git learning curve on a Git is just horrific, and for when you're first starting out. But it's interesting, but it's nothing you need to know. Yeah.
Speaking of the Git integration, it's worth doing if you have the capability to do it, to sync it up, just for version control purposes. So you hit the publish button.
V1, V2, V3.
No,
That's new, old, 2024. Final. Yeah.
But with that, so it's as simple as deploying a Git environment. You hit the publish button, and when you go back into the service, you hit the commit button, and it goes in. You write some comments, and it's there. And if you ever need the previous version, you can just go into that repository, and you've got your previous version.
The main issue I have, and I suspect a lot of citizen developers will have, is you are not part of IT.
Yes.
Yeah.
You have overall capability to do that level of fancy stuff.
Yeah, and I had the exact same situation. I had to send a message to IT, or raise a ticket to specifically get me added to the user group that were allowed to connect things to Git.
I'm sitting here feeling very lucky that the tabular calculation groups and DAX Studio has basically just been integrated, because about 3 weeks ago I went to use the portable versions of those that I have, so that I don't have to deal with that. And a nice little pop-up came up saying you cannot run any not-installed applications.
So there you go. Yeah. So that's exactly why you want that stuff integrated, because you can't use external tools. And so as Richard says, like that version control piece, just that piece is super useful. That's similar to, I don't know if you ever did the OneDrive thing, where you save it to OneDrive first and publish it up so that OneDrive maintains your versions.
So that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So then you don't have to have new 2024, new 2025. Yeah.
History rollback.
Yeah. Rollback version history type stuff. It's similar to that, and that's kind of the like super basic way of doing it. It's just if you save it to SharePoint or OneDrive, it'll maintain the versions for you, and you can just roll back whenever you need to and publish back up. But then the next advanced version is to do that Git integration, and then you start to get into deployment pipelines, and then so it's like a maturity thing in terms of where you're at, where you want to be, that kind of thing. Cool.
Just a question. So now that we've got everything in, again, Fabric, like if you were using dedicated tools or serverless in Synapse, and like traditionally everything that we've had in the big capacities, like it's used as much as you want. It's not like you're paying as you go along. Those sort of services that you might pay for as you go along, previously, in Synapse, Now that they're over on the other side, do you reckon that any of that might leach in at some point in terms of the way that they're, priced, the costing?
Yeah.
Can't you already turn on auto scale?
Yeah, but assuming you don't do that.
Yeah. So there was a bit of conversation about dedicated pools and the SQL world and all this kind of stuff happening in Microsoft. And there was certainly a lot of talk about the way that they do the licensing piece, because they have actually changed the way they do SQL licensing. And there was some controversy about that. I wasn't paying attention because SQL's not my jam. But dedicated pools and SQL data warehouse. So every Synapse workload, there's going to be the equivalent in Fabric, and there's going to be a migration path from Synapse, anything you're doing in Synapse to Fabric. Now, the interesting one is dedicated SQL pools, because the underlying technology is totally different, right? It's not a dedicated SQL environment in Fabric. It's a lakehouse, and it has a totally different architecture underneath it, and it's completely, and it's frankly a lot more efficient, and that's why it's a lot cheaper to run it that way. But how does that translate for those people who are running these large dedicated SQL workspace? I don't know, is the short answer, and I suspect there'll be a migration path. I just don't know exactly how that's going to work. Yeah, so sorry, I don't know right now, but I'll definitely keep an eye out. And yeah, cool. Any more questions? That was good questions. Thanks, everyone. I don't have swag today. I'm spewing. I've got to get some more swag. Good questions. Thanks very much. It's great to see you all. Feel free to hang around and eat the pizza boxes. Sorry, there wasn't a lot. No, it's all out. Oh, I'm going to go hungry. That's okay. I'll survive. Thanks. It's good to see you. Feel free to hang around and have a little chat, and then we're going to head out. Thanks, guys. Thanks online. Love you. Heart, heart.
Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, Heidi.